not surprised. And with that, welcome to our Stoppage show, where the news of the day is usually given just enough time, but sometimes not enough. If it's your first time stopping by, we thank you. And get ready for something you won't find anywhere else. I'm John Franklin. I'm joined by the godfather of Fight Night Picks, Craig Allen. Craig, how are you?
John, I'm well. It's been a while. Last time I was here, I was wearing a funky shirt. I was pre-camping trip. The camping trip got rained on. It was good nonetheless. Then I wore the same funky shirt later on, and I put on a pair of glasses, and everybody hated the glasses. So let me know in the comments section. Should I be blind like I am right now, or should I be sighted wearing glasses? Listen, busy week in MMA. We're taping this one a little bit earlier than we normally do, but I've had a blast getting ready for the show. There's a lot to talk about. And in the meantime, while we were writing it, I was listening to one of my favorite artists from when I was a kid. And so I'm going to be dropping subtle song references. And if you can guess during the show who that artist is, you get a prize. You think you're up to the task?
Me, no. But hopefully
I think you are. You're going to be able to get this.
You think so?
Yeah, I think you are.
Do I qualify for the prize, or is there like a disclaimer where all employees of Fight Night Picks?
No, this is specifically for you. Sorry to the listeners and the viewers. This is just
for
you.
All right, guys. All right. Quickly, and I guess we'll get into this more. Update on me. Last time on our show, we talked about my birthday. It was spectacular. We had a blast. Watched the Anderson Silva Julio Cesar Chavez fight, which we will get into later. Did not disappoint. Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. takes the headgear off. After the third round, they're only going 4, Craig. He took the headgear off. Didn't leave it off, but he took it off. On this episode of Stoppage, we talk Glass Joe, Luke the Boogeyman, and if the party is over in the PFL, we begin, Craig, with the heavyweight belt. We kind of knew John Jones was out. It seemed like Stipe Miocic is out. I mean, he's always out for a while after a fight. But now the champ is out. Francis Ngannou will not be the next man to have his hand raised in a heavyweight title fight. It will be either Derrick Lewis or Ciryl Gane. Those two men are fighting for the interim title. So, Craig, how the hell did we get here?
I think there's some puppet strings being pulled that we just don't know about, that were exposed by potentially Ariel Helwani and his revenge tour, just group of tweets that he threw out there yesterday. Listen, is this the fight to make, John? I mean, I was on the right side of history saying Brandon Moreno, flyweight champ, 2020. I said 2020. It happened in 2021, right? You know that. I know that. Most people don't know that. I feel like I have to say it every show. However, I've also been on the Ciryl Gane train the same way. I mean, saying future's champ. Now, at the time, I was saying, wouldn't it be a perfect fight if we had Stipe Miocic versus Ciryl Gane for the title? I mean, you look at what Ciryl did in his first 3 fights with TKO. That win over Adam Dijkse is huge. Adam Dijkse was Canada's biggest kind of answer. He was their next star. He was their next Hakeem Dawodu, maybe. I don't know what we've got up here in Canada. We don't have as much as Kazakhstan these days. But Adam Dijkse was a really big deal. Ciryl Gane totally changed the course of Dijkse's career. So that just kind of showed me how good Gane would be. We've seen how good he is in the UFC. He performed, I'd say, more than admirably against Alexander Volkov on the weekend. What was it? 50-45 and 249-46, if I'm not mistaken. So Gane looked really good. He fought a really smart fight like we expected him to. But it seemed like the fight was going to be Derrick Lewis and Francis Ngannou. Now, due to Francis's, I wouldn't even say inability, but he didn't want to sign the contract. So Lewis says, so the UFC says, which put pressure on him and his management. Ultimately, Ciryl Gane takes the chance. Now, you got to put yourself in Ciryl Gane's shoes, because we talked about this before. Was this title fight right? Did he deserve the shot? Should this man or should this woman have taken this fight? If you're Ciryl Gane, this is a huge fuck you to Francis Ngannou. I mean, Ngannou left Ferdinand Lopez, left MMA Factory, double birded the whole gym, went over to the States, became the champ. You're Ciryl Gane. Of course you take this fight. Nobody's upset that Gane took the fight, and I don't think anybody's upset that Derrick Lewis took the fight either. So for both of those parties, perfect move, power play. You're the next in line. You're the next number 1 contender. Forget about Stipe. Forget about the winner of Jairzinho and Blades. This is a number 1 contenders fight with a little bit of hardware around it. But ultimately, how do we get here? I don't know. How do we get there? Come on, let's go. Me and you, Zaboom-a-foo with Crap Brothers. And the other thing too, John, just before I end my little spiel, how bad do you feel for your gal, Amanda Nunes, and Juliana Pena? Not a draw, eh?
Yeah, I do feel bad for them. But, listen, let's talk real quick about, we like to draw comparisons here. And here's one that I'll tell you out front is kind of a stretch. But, sometimes it's like, when you're like dating someone and then you break up and then immediately they're with someone else that they said was like no threat while you guys were together. It's like, how quickly do you go to Ciryl Gane when you don't get what you want from Francis Ngannou? And it's like, it seems like they're just jumping around in the heavyweight division. If I don't get what I want from Stipe, I'll go here. If I don't get what I want from Jones, I'll go there. And they're trying to use all these fighters against each other, and it's making for a huge mess. I like Ciryl Gane. I don't know that he is the future of the heavyweight division in terms of marketability. I just don't know. I mean, I thought that we had decided, and the UFC had sort of, I guess, convinced us that Francis Ngannou was the second coming of Mike Tyson or Jesus Christ. I can't tell, depending on, what tweet they send out on what day. But I just think that this just seems like, I understand that they like to posture, and I understand that they're all about, suppression of fighter pay, and there's a lot of moving pieces here. And we'll get to the Francis Ngannou's representation later. But I just think that sometimes, although you have to say the UFC usually gets these things right, occasionally I think they fumble the ball. Now, they end up making, it's the guy that fumbles the ball and then, and then runs for a 90-yard touchdown later on in the game. You forget about the fumble. They do that a lot, where they'll fuck one thing up and then fix it in a huge way later. So that's what I see here.
I mean, I kind of want to move on from this, but before we do, I threw the tweet out there with a poll, and I said interim belts are a better idea than no title fight at all or absolutely nothing. 72% answered absolutely nothing. So it doesn't seem like the fans are in on it. I threw that one out there on Instagram, got a lot of responses. The majority of people don't seem to like it. So if you're a fan out there, let us know in the comment section. If you're driving in your car, if you're on an airplane, just wait till your commute's over. You let us know what you think about these. But John, Fight Night Picks fans, they know my love for Stitch 'em Up. The former Glory Kickboxing champ, ripping darts between fights. He had an odd run with Bellator that ended with his inability to get a license. He was supposed to fight Curtis Millender last fall. Subsequently, he gets cut after that. It was a really weird scene. Well, now, Joe's in hot water over a video that I'm sure the listeners and the viewers have seen by now. So first of all, John, I got to ask you, A, is this video even legit? And B, was this the best use of the old self-defense case?
I think it's the only, it's the old joke from that movie with, what's that guy's name? The tall kid from How I Met Your Mother, Jason Segel, where the kid goes, Michael Jordan's got 6 championships, and the kid goes, that's the only defense you got. And then, or that's the only argument you got. And the guy goes, it's the only argument I need, Sean. Well, the only argument Joe Schilling's got is this is self-defense, because we saw the video. Listen, here's the thing, man. The video feels unlegit, except for the fact that he really clocked that kid. Like the kid was looking like a douchebag. The white trash chick that was in the low cut top. It was all kind of weird. Like the guy looked in the video like somebody you were begging to get cracked, right? Like you're like, man, I wish somebody would hit this douchebag. And then next thing you know, Joe Schilling hits him. And it was almost all like, the only thing that makes it a little bit believable is how hard he hit him and how quick the kid went down. And the fact that the busboy was kind of in the way, or the waiter. Why would he be there if it was a setup video? I don't know. It doesn't ring true, but man, did he hit him hard if it's a fake video.
Well, like, who's filming this? And why are they filming it? Like, geez, I'm going to go to, Buffalo Wild Wings on a Friday night. Hopefully I don't see Joe Schilling there, but like, who's filming either the action, their friend, again, you talked about it, the server, the busboy, whoever it was, he kind of walks out, chit-chats, turns away, and then this guy gets creamed. But before all of it, like, Joe Schilling kind of like takes 2 hands and pushes him out of the way. So aren't you not supposed to put your hands on somebody else? I mean, I don't, if a guy was in my way, again, I'm not a professional fighter, look at me. Look at me. I'm obviously going to say, excuse me, pardon me, and then I'm going to move out of the way. And in these COVID times, I'm probably going to keep my distance because we still do that up here for now anyway. So It really is a tricky one. I thought it looked fake. I don't know. I mean, you go on Reddit. Reddit was insane yesterday. It was a jungle. It was just Joe Schilling knockout reel after Joe Schilling knockout reel. And I'm not talking about Joe Schilling knocking people out. It was people knocking Joe Schilling out. So it seemed like Reddit had a good time with it. It seemed like Twitter had a good time with it. And listen, thoughts and prayers with the guy that got knocked out at, like, I don't know, a Longhorn Steakhouse or wherever they were.
I will say this. That kid flinching at Joe doesn't help his case.
No, you're right.
That's sort of an aggressive act. All right, Craig, can we move on? It's funny that we didn't really go over what could possibly happen with Joe Schilling because, I mean, he doesn't really have much of a career at this point. I mean, maybe, he's more of a coach than he is a fighter. I don't know. Do you think there's any fallout from this?
I mean, some would say, like, it definitely cuts like a knife, but it's going to be difficult for him because he's so far into his career. Obviously, it wasn't great at the end of his Bellator run either in MMA. I mean, and even the wins that he had, like, you look at it, they put him up against really tough competition, but right at the end wasn't great. And then you get denied a license to fight. So he's probably, going to continue in a coaching role. We've seen him at the BAMF ranch or whatever it is, BMF ranch with Cowboy Cerrone. And we've seen him in the corner of certain fighters in the UFC. I think we'll continue to see that. But obviously an unfortunate situation. There's been no bigger stitch him up fan than me.
Certainly not going to help with the license.
No.
Craig, we move on. John Jones said this week he'll fight when he's good and ready. Here's our first Chael reference. Chael has said on many videos, including some of the most recent ones he's done, that this guy's just wasting his career. And we've talked about this in the past. I don't see it. I don't see the play here. I don't get it. Does John Jones know something that we don't? I'm sure he knows a lot of things we don't. But does he know something about this strategy, or is he really just wasting his prime?
It's one of those ones where you look at it, and if you're the UFC, you figure at some point John Jones is going to do the old, well, hey, I'm going to run to you. But then he never does. And so for John Jones, it's a really tricky one. We've talked about this in a couple of different, a couple of different looks, in the fact that John Jones now has new representation. He's no longer with First Round Management. He's got the old, the Golden Boy CEO or the Golden Boy, business officer, you want to call him that, in his corner. And he was ready to sit out until 2022. So it is tricky. If he's going to fight when he's good and ready, I guess he's going to let this interim stuff kind of get out of the way first. But we'll figure it out. I mean, if it's straight from the heart, so be it. But listen, good luck to John Jones.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think that listen, GSP took a long time off, came back, beat Bisping. That was kind of, set on a platter for him. All due respect to Bisping. I think that if he really feels like he has a plan together and only wants to go to heavyweight, some of these guys, it depends on what class you put Jones in. I'm going to put him in the highest class there is, right? So he's Muhammad Ali. He's Floyd Mayweather. He's George St. Pierre. He's all these guys, right? So if he's all those guys, then he knows when he's ready. And maybe he's just not ready. Maybe he doesn't think he's fast enough at heavyweight yet. Maybe he doesn't think X, Y, and Z. So I'm, as crazy as this sounds, I guess it's not that crazy. I'm going to defer to one of the greatest of all time and say that he knows when he's ready to get in there. And I'm 44. Okay. And I set a goal for myself this week running, and I hit the goal, but that's, a one-time deal. Like, I'm not going to do that every day. It was just, can I do this or can I not do this? So I'm just saying that sometimes periods of inactivity, which I had when I was younger, I believe have given me longevity. I don't have any knee problems. I don't have back problems like some of my friends do who constantly were like hitting it hard all those years. I had, 6-8 months I'd take off here and there. So maybe that's it. Maybe he's actually, now the problem with that argument, the flaw in that logic is that he's still training. He's still in the gym. He's still sparring, you'd think. So I don't know, man. I'm going to defer to the GOAT on this one, but he's wasting time. I don't know if he's wasting his prime, but he's definitely wasting time.
Well, he set me up perfectly because, John, Khamzat Chimaev, he's an international man of mystery. Do you remember him? Like, does anybody remember him? Baby, when you're gone.
He sounds vaguely familiar. I feel like I haven't seen him since the summer of '69. It's been a while.
You son of a gun. You figured me out. Cuts like a knife. It ruined it, didn't it? Damn. You got it on the first one. But listen, today's news with Khamzat Chimaev is the fact that he's no longer featured on the Dominance MMA website, nor does Ali Abdelaziz follow him on the socials. And then last week, we also had the fact that Luke Rockhold came out and said Chimaev turned down a fight with the former champ. So, John, if you're Khamzat Chimaev, or if you're in his corner, I believe he has Swedish management now. Like, what's the game plan to regain some of the stock that's cooled off since he last fought in September of last year? Can you believe it's been that long?
Well, here's the question. There are certain fighters who raise their stock outside of the cage, Nate Diaz. There are certain fighters who raise their stock inside the cage, Khamzat Chimaev. So all Khamzat Chimaev has to do is take whatever fight they'll give him against whatever fighter at whatever weight class and just run through the guy. Now, again, we just talked about wasting your prime. You know, has he had opportunities in the past? I mean, guys, you know, the old Rick Pitino saying with the Celtics, Larry Bird's not walking through that door, folks. Robert Parrish ain't walking through that door. Guess what? The next time Khamzat Chimaev fights, Leon Edwards ain't walking through that door, folks. And Luke Rockhold's probably not walking through that door either. It's going to be someone a little bit further down the pecking order. But that could be good for him. Maybe he's a smart enough fighter to know Luke Rockhold's a little bit of a problem after a long layoff. Maybe he wants to get in there and see what he still has got. But I think that you know, we were impressed with him in the cage. I think just getting back in there, taking what the UFC will give you and looking impressive, we'll forget all about the time that's missed. And sometimes the cool thing about being a fighter is sometimes your career really is reduced to a highlight reel, even if you've missed time, once you're impressive. So it's just 3 fights strung together. No one cares about the distance in between. And, you know, we have recency bias.
And I mean, that's fair. And the crazy thing is, too, like we talk about it, Chimaev hasn't fought since September last year. John, if you had to guess, when was the last time Luke Rockhold won a fight?
Oh, won? Wow.
Yeah.
2018.
17.
Wow.
He beat David Branch, UFC Fight Night 116. And he looked really good in that fight. Then he lost to Romero, who kissed him. And then he lost to Jan Blachowicz, and now we're here. He also lost to Nick Rodriguez at Players 12. But I'm so surprised that we haven't seen Chimaev. I know around Christmas time, we were supposed to get the return, and there's been so many fights booked and that have fallen through, and the COVID long haul symptoms and this and that. And listen, are two things related? Cody Garbrandt, long haul symptoms, how poorly he looked against Rob Font. That was probably a product of his wrestling and inactivity, but who knows what we're going to get out of Khamzat Chimaev. So obviously, you know, again, wish him nothing but the best. It is a really tricky situation for that guy because you're right. He's the type of guy that only gains stock when he's in the cage. And some might say, like Tina Turner, that it's only love when Khamzat's in the cage. I mean, unless you're Reese McKee or John Phillips or Gerald Meerschaert. But that quick run was insane. It was like Edson Barboza when he spinning wheel kicked Terry Edom. Everybody's going to remember it forever. But now we got to kind of pick up the pieces and start fighting again. So I hope that we get to see Khamzat soon because I don't think he's going to get another opportunity at like a top 3, just bang at 170. But even kind of hidden in the nuggets of the Luke Rockhold conversation was the fact that Chimaev didn't want to go back up to 185. He wants to stick it at 170. So maybe a fight with like a Diaz or somebody between 15 and 10 makes sense for him. But yeah, hopefully we just see him back in the cage. That's all I'd like.
Yeah, and I think that here's the one thing he really has to worry about, which is that the more distance since his last fight, the more we start to look at those wins and be less impressed with them because it's not murderer's row. And I think
whoa. Now listen, Fight Night Picks John did a special episode not that long ago, and we popped this bad boy out. You're telling me that this guy is not a big deal? This Gerald Meerschaert submission specialist signed card? What is it? 20 of 25? That's so limited edition. Come on. It's a big deal to me. It was the first fight I ever saw live, and he won it. He beat Ryan Jaynes. Big deal. Canadian Ryan Jaynes.
It's a big deal to everyone. All right, Craig, we move on. Let's talk about this lawsuit. CB Dollaway and Cajun Johnson filed a lawsuit against UFC and Endeavor. I'll read this from MMA Fighting. Lawsuit filed by Johnson and Dollaway alleges that Zuffa violated antitrust laws by paying UFC fighters far less than they were entitled to receive and eliminating or hurting other MMA promoters. This class period ultimately proposed by the plaintiffs in the Lee action closed on June 30th, 2017. Plaintiffs Johnson and Dollaway bring this case on behalf of those like themselves who fought in a bout promoted by the UFC on or after July 1st, 2017. I think the specificity there at the end is that Kung Lee had a class action suit, and the window ended in 2017. This window is from that date moving forward. Here's my question for you. Do you think these lawsuits are going to bear more fruit in an actual court or in the court of public opinion?
If they play out in the actual court, they get covered in the court of public opinion. And normally the two best people that you can find to talk about this are Eric McCracken and John S. Nash over on Twitter. They're going to have you covered. They're going to be the best two that are going to provide, the content that's easily digestible and actually readable out of any of this. So go follow them. They're the specialists in this type of thing. For me, I think it is good. I mean, us having a conversation about it, MMA Fighting writing articles about it, it's all good if you're, in favor of this antitrust type of legislation or this ruling actually going forward. And you look at it right now, I look at the state of fighting. I shared a couple of different things around the other day, and some of them got likes. One of them got a little bit of a snarky comment. I don't know if you saw this, but Sarah Alpar put out a GoFundMe. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did. And
she's got a fight coming up, this summer, but she needs help paying for her gym membership, for optimal nutrition, for travel to get to, I believe it's UFC 266 is the card that she's fighting on. You're a UFC fighter. Like, this stuff shouldn't happen. These fighters should be paid properly. Now, again, for Sarah, she had a short notice fight in the UFC. She fought, who was it? Jessica Rose Clark. She didn't look very good. There was that weird where she slid, but also got hit by the knee, lost by TKO. Ultimately, unfortunate that, the fight ended the way that it did, but she's had a few bookings since and they've fallen through. So obviously you wish nothing but the best for fighters in general, but this is a specific case where you can definitely see that there needs to be more in terms of programs, checks and balances in place for these fighters, because you should never have an athlete needing to go fund themselves to fight in the biggest organization in the world to get themselves there so they can be, in fight-ready shape. So I hated to see that. If this helps along in any small way so that we don't have to see GoFundMes like that, then, that's a great thing. But I just don't know enough about the subject in terms of this lawsuit, so I can't really comment on it.
Sometimes companies do things and they look like they make no sense in the moment. And then they're sort of setting the table for something down the road. Not no sense, but they seem like they're geared at one thing, and meanwhile they're actually geared at something else. So an example would be I'm at the gym, I'm listening to my headphones, and all of a sudden the volume goes down. I'm like, what the hell's going on? And I look at my notifications and it says, your phone has put your volume down based on your usage. And I'm like, well, I listen to my music as loud as I can every time I listen to it. So how is that possible that it's based on my usage? And you realize it's turning your volume down so you can't sue Apple in 10 years when you say you've lost your hearing, or 15 or 20 years. I think that when the UFC, and we've talked about this before, so this is nothing new. If you're a fan of Early Stoppage, you've been listening for a while, what I'm about to say is nothing new to you. We've had this conversation plenty of times. But part of the reason why the Performance Institute exists is so that when there's a real issue, they can bring the fighters in and have a facility to, rehab or whatever. But the other reason is that if you have poor fighters, you can say to them, what do you mean you can't afford to train? Train here. Move to Vegas. You can train at the Performance Institute.
It's just that easy.
It's just that easy to just move to Vegas and, train here. Which, in fairness to the UFC, it's not that hard. I mean, I'm sure if you put together, a fight, what I'm saying is the UFC could make an argument that the amount of money you're supposed to make in a given year would allow you to live in Vegas, support yourself, feed yourself, and then anything that you did beyond that is your responsibility. Meaning, if you want to have kids and be married and all that stuff, whatever. I don't think that you should be paid as a fighter of a multi-billion-dollar company minimum wage. But the argument could be that, Walmart's a billion-dollar company and Well, Amazon pays pretty well, but McDonald's is $1 billion company. All these other companies that pay their employees low wages, why would, just because you're fighting and you're on TV, why would that entitle you to any money more than a McDonald's employee? Because we see you. So I don't know. I think it gets weird, but I think that's the thing they've put in place to sort of push back on a little bit of this.
Straight from the heart, as one Mr. Adams would say. John, we move on. And before losing his second fight in a row, which was a career first, former two-time PFL featherweight champion, double millionaire Lance Palmer said to the media candidly, even before the fight against Khamzat, he said, I don't think it's been repaired, to be honest, Palmer said at PFL 6 Media Day on Tuesday when asked about his current relationship with the PFL. I don't think there was really an effort to repair it either. It's not something I've dwelled on, but that's something that will definitely come up if we do go into a negotiation to either extend or do a new contract. John, we talked about Lance Palmer even before the season started and the fact that seemed like he had some major issues with the organization. He had put out some information that he wanted to be released, but then he was in the season. Like I said, he lost to Bubba Jenkins. He lost to Mavlid Khamzat. So, John, with plenty more wins than he does losses, maybe a less than appealing fighting style, what do you think's next for your former World Series guy, Lance Palmer?
Yeah, I don't really know. I'm one of the things in life is it's all about timing, right? It's all about you got to know the right time to do the right thing. And I'm a teacher. I've been telling teachers a lot lately. And this is an old Bill Walsh thing that I've quoted a bunch of times. Bill Walsh would say, I'd rather cut you a year early than a year late. And I tell teachers now that I talk to, sometimes it's better to leave a school a year early than a year late. Leave while you're still hugging everybody before, because once you're ready to go, it's time to go. Now, had Lance Palmer left at the apex of his powers, his popularity, his career, he might not have got the $2 million because you could argue he was more relevant to the UFC pre-PFL than during the PFL. But had he just left after the second $1 million, okay, there you go. But we don't know. Listen, if that was that easy, all these UFC guys would be fighting Jake Paul or, whoever. So obviously the contracts are what they are. I just think that he may have lost his window in the way that Justin Gaethje seemed to leave right at the perfect time. He didn't get the belt. Mud Ice, they left right at the perfect time to maximize. If I'm not mistaken, they left right before Endeavor, middle of Connor, post Ronda. Like they were in that sweet spot of like the UFC was really rocking and rolling. This kid seems to have missed his window. I think, again, with his fighting style, I do think he's got some more time. Some of these guys tend to fight. Uriah Faber fought a little bit later in his career. Henderson, Couture, these guys that are wrestle heavy, they seem to be able to fight a little bit longer. But I don't know if there's a huge demand for him. Let me extend the question and just say, how do you think you're feeling if you're the PFL? I mean, Kayla's looking good. Shields got to win, but Pettis is out of the playoffs. Rory McDonald just lost. Now this guy's busting your balls. Tell me the Palmer bit and the state of the PFL.
I'll give you that. Now, I got to say one thing. You gave me a Bill Walsh quote. Can I get a Bill Walton quote?
A Bill Walton quote from me?
Yeah, I'd like a Bill Walton quote.
I don't have one off the top of my head.
I think we should start every show with a Bill Walton quote. Hell, we should just start with Bill Walton in every show. I think that would really make it.
I think so too.
Let's do it. But yeah, when I look at this, I think the PFL has gained. I mean, it's definitely, any publicity is good publicity, right? So Rory McDonald losing a super controversial decision to Gleison Tebow. Hey, people are talking about Rory McDonald. Hey, I didn't even know Rory was with the PFL. Hey, Gleison beat Khabib. Wouldn't that be crazy? We even talked about that in the last episode of Early Stoppage. If you go way back to it, it exists. But I think the PFL continues to win. I mean, Kayla Harrison excelling, finishing fights so quick. Cindy Dandois didn't stand a chance, but didn't it look cool when Kayla Harrison just kind of nodded and said, yep. I don't think anybody can beat me. It's pretty cool stuff. Claressa Shields, huge come from behind win. Oh, and she's also the face of the PFL's Upper Deck card. Because I went looking for their cards. They've only got a card, and it's just Kayla Harrison. It's just Claressa Shields. So good for them. But ultimately, I think they continue to win. Now, when I look at this week in terms of combat sports, there's what? EMC, there's EFC, there's what is there? Combate, there's LFA. There's some cards. Don't know why Bellator and PFL didn't decide to have a card this week. Now, I understand you guys have 4th of July. We have Canada Day in a couple of days on Thursday. So it makes sense that way. But hey, you know, you could have thrown something together. You could have put out a little bit of a spread, right? So I do think that the PFL is gaining. But listen, losing your stars and losing your big names, like you said, Pettis losing 2 fights, Fabrizio Verdum, like, not being cleared to fight. Like, it's kind of a weird look, and they probably spent a lot of money acquiring the talent that they did.
I've had 36 orthopedic operations, have 2 fused ankles, my knees, hands, and wrists don't work. I now have a fused spine. Other than that, everything's great. Bill Walton. And we move on to sparring sessions. Listen, this is a common topic of sparring sessions. Our guy, Jake Paul. I got a lot to say about Jake Paul this week. Because I've seen a few things here and there that are really starting to impress me about this kid. But this week, Randy Couture spoke with MMA Fighting. I believe it was David Martin. And what he said was, what the Ali Act does for boxers, that doesn't happen for the rest of us in combative sports. I think that's what needs to change. If it takes Jake Paul to run his mouth and get that done, then great. As long as it gets done. It just kind of seems crazy to me that it's coming from there, and we as athletes in mixed martial arts can't come together and can't hold these promoters to a higher standard and create the transparency that we need in the sport. So the question for sparring sessions this week is Randy Couture right? Is Jake Paul the answer to fighter pay in combat sports?
Hasn't Jake Paul himself come out and said that he was like pro fighter pay and pro MMA fighters getting paid? Hell yeah. Keep it going, Jake Paul. Listen, you're booming an entire industry. Are you ruining boxing? Maybe. Do I give a shit? No, I'm not. Listen, I watch boxing from afar. I enjoy some of it. It just so happens coincidentally that our logo features a boxer. But listen, that was just a design choice back in 2018. What do I know? Nothing. I'm wearing, John, right now, I'm wearing a jersey for the fans to see. I'm wearing the Players Weekend of your Chicago Cubs, Dirty Craig Kimbrell, Players Weekend Red Sox jersey.
Oh,
big fan.
Yeah.
Big fan. But the point of all that is the fact that boxing, it's sport that's in a really odd state of flux, right? Like Teofimo Lopez is one of your biggest young stars. Is he fighting for PBC? Is he fighting for Showtime? No, he's fighting for Triller. So it's a really weird kind of avenue. You get all the different WBO, WBA, IBF. There's all these different organizations. Is one of the 3 that I just said even existing? Is WBC a thing too?
I think they're all existing.
See, they confuse me because I watch from afar. But all I do know in this little pea brain of mine is the fact that Jake Paul actually is doing something for fighter pay or getting the conversation going. So if it seems like I'm super pro fighter pay this week, maybe it's just John's questions, but maybe it's just the way that I feel. And I do actually appreciate what, Jake Paul's been able to do. Logan Paul, not so much, but Jake Paul, you're good in my books. And I never thought I'd say any of that. Never.
You know, here's the thing. So I'm going to talk to you about this Jake Paul stuff. There's been a few things I saw this week on TikTok and other places. So one thing
You're 44.
I know I'm too damn old for TikTok, that's for sure. But the next segment's about TikTok. Here's the thing. So he had a conversation. It was with the Channing Crowder and Brandon Marshall, that podcast they do. And Channing Crowder tried to stick him to it. He said, you shouldn't tell me about sports, and I won't tell you about being an influencer. And Jake Paul said, well, influencers just think that he was just saying that Jake Paul didn't know shit about sports and boxing. And it's funny because Jake Paul said to him, he goes, that's ignorant. And Channing Crowder said, well, you can call me ignorant if you want. And Jake Paul said, I didn't say you're ignorant. I said that's ignorant. And I think that when I hear Jake Paul talk, the thing that fascinates me about the kid is he doesn't let people stick him to things. He doesn't allow himself to be misquoted. He's very principled. One of the other things I saw was he got into an argument with Shannon Briggs because he thought Shannon Briggs said that it's okay that his brother was losing against KSI because it was his first pro fight. So when Jake Paul has conviction about something, he doesn't back off it, and he doesn't let you paint him into a corner. He's a lot smarter than I think people give him credit for. Certainly, I don't want to say he's smarter than his brother, but some of the traps that his brother has fallen into and maybe will fall into in the future, there's a reason why Floyd chose Logan and not Jake.
Yeah.
Because Jake would have taken it much more seriously and brought a much better fight to Floyd. So Floyd knew what he was doing. I think that this kid, under the right circumstances, I've said for a long time that I thought the person that would be able to fix fighter pay is someone that didn't need the money necessarily and couldn't have it held over their head. I always thought it was going to be Conor. I always thought Conor is so rich that he can play hardball with the UFC and say, I'm not fighting until this, or he could pull out of a card and not, suffer financially. All bullshit aside, and I'm not saying Conor should do this, but Conor could have everybody strike on a card and pay them all if he wanted to. He could say, hey, tonight we don't fight. We decide the night of the fight we're not fighting, and I'm covering everybody's expenses. Conor can afford to do that and not even break a sweat. So that from that perspective, I always thought it was going to be him. The problem is Conor and Dana are at least business partners and at most friends. So that ain't going to happen. So maybe it's a guy who has that kind of wealth. He's got fuck you money, and he's not a business partner with Dana. So he can go and say, listen, he can just keep taking Dana's guys, beating the shit. If he beats Tyron Woodley, this shit gets real. It gets real because Tyron's a real guy. Dana had to let him go because I don't think Tyron was cut, at least not officially that I saw. So Dana had to give him his blessing to go fight Jake Paul. And if Jake keeps taking out Dana's guys, say what you want to, Ben Askren's a Dana guy. Tyron Woodley's a Dana guy. Now, are they in the doghouse? Or are they on his shit list? Yeah. But they're still Dana guys more so than other people. So I think that, more so than like Ryan Bader isn't a Dana guy. Ben Askren and Tyron Woodley are Dana guys. I think Jake Paul could do it. I think he's the kind of guy that's got the kind of fuck you money and doesn't need Dana. All these other guys need Dana. Even Conor, to an extent, needs Dana. If he wants to fight, Jake Paul doesn't.
Well, I mean, he could always go fight for, what is it, Eagles FC or GMC? He could go fight Habib, right? Wouldn't that be a lot of money? Fight in a soccer stadium? I do, Jake Paul said a lot of stuff. He's done a lot of wrong. He's done some good. But at the end of it all, yeah, I'm in agreement. I mean, this is one where, again, you asked me this question a couple of years ago before any of these fights happened. Yeah, the guy looks like a goofball. He's got the beard. He's got the dangly earrings. He's walking into the ring saying he beat him. He beat Floyd Mayweather. Is it believable? No, but he does a good job of selling it. And I think at the end of the day, some of the things that he says, a lot of people in the MMA media space or the MMA fandom space don't take this guy seriously at all. So they see the headline. They don't read into it. They don't actually watch some of the videos. But listen, if a 44-year-old guy with a Fight Night Picks hat believes in him, then there's got to be a little bit of truth to it. So maybe some people should start listening a little bit.
Maybe they should. We move on. Craig, we're going to do the feature segment quickly because TikTok demands it. Okay? Rank them. All right, rank them this week. Who are the most important figures in combat sports right now? Go.
Logan and Jake Paul, 1-2. Vasily Lomachenko, Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua, Francis Ngannou, Conor McGregor, Clarissa Shields. What am I at right now?
7.
7? Ooh, 3 more. I want to say the Assassin Baby, but I'm on a hill there. I'm all alone on that island. Oh! Having a really hard time. Jake Hager. I need 2 more. Oh, boy.
Dana Coker.
Dana White and Steven Espinoza.
There we go. All right, guys, let's move on to the socials. Let's start with For the Gram. Craig, Justin Jaynes bet his fight purse that he would win his fight, and he lost. Dumb move, or do you always bet on yourself?
Theoretically, you bet on yourself every time you walk into the cage. You could die, right? I mean, that's what fighters love. I could die in there. I don't like it. I don't like the optics around it. I think it definitely unintentionally probably promotes more people to doing this. Like now you're going to end up with some guy in the regional scene and it's like a second pro fight. Oh yeah, I bet my whole purse. And like, it really, really matters. Not to say that it doesn't to Justin Jaynes, but at the end of the day, he's a coach at Extreme Couture. So he's probably going to go back and have a job the next day. But I think the optics are really bad. It actually really disappointed me to see this before the fight. Like we tried to not even talk about this on Question Mark Kicks. That's how much it bugged me. So I hate it. I think it's a really dumb move.
It's genius if he won. If he would have won, now it becomes no, I'm just saying, not from the money aspect. Now it becomes you bet on yourself each fight. And it turns into a thing, and it becomes a bigger thing than just the money. I don't think that you do this for the money. I think you do this for the exposure. But yeah, he didn't win, so now here we are. One Twitter hitter, Roxanne Modafferi, will she play spoiler again versus Tatiana Suarez in a return at 125 pounds?
I mean, listen, she beat Macy Barber. Like, she's got some pretty big wins. And she's a good grappler, and Suarez has been off forever. So it could be a really good opportunity, but I don't know any bigger Roxanne Modafferi stands than John Franklin. So I'll defer to you on this one. It's a tough fight, though.
Yeah, Tatiana Suarez is just one of those people that I've been pulling for a long time to just come to complete fruition. You know, we hear all these fighters like, oh, this person's going to be the next whatever. We've heard about Alexa Grasso and all these different fighters. And I just want to see one of them come to their full fruition and potential. And I like Tatiana Suarez. I think she's a good fighter. She seems fun on social media. She'd be a lot of I want to see her get to where she's destined to go. All right, Craig, post it to the book. Let's say hi to the grandparents, the aunts, the uncles. Anderson Silva, folks, defeated Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. in a split decision. Somebody must have got paid because it was all Anderson. Craig, do you think this opens the door for more Anderson fights with other names, Roy Jones, Mike Tyson, those kind of fights? Or do you think this should just be Anderson's swan song? They should move on. Listen, they said on that telecast, and listen, we weren't dealing with the greatest announcers in the world. They were okay. They were really impressed with Anderson. They thought he looked good. I thought he looked good. He looked like Anderson that you'd ever seen Anderson. He was in shape. He took it very seriously. He was in there, he was mugging. He was having a good time, but that's Anderson. And he put it on this guy. He kind of looked like what Tyson looked like when he fought Jones. Like he looked like he was taking it seriously, and he was coming forward, and he had a good pace. He was in shape. What do you think? Do you think Anderson should keep it up? Or do you think
he didn't have to worry about anybody checking leg kicks, right?
Oh,
so there is that. Now, you know, when we're talking about this, we're talking about posting to the book. Like, which Facebook like emoji can I use? Is this like the smile that's holding the heart? Do I give it the emoji where it's the face, but it's crying, but kind of smiling? I don't know. I mean, listen, it's great that Anderson Silva picked up a win. It's a big FU to boxing. I mean, the last time I watched Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. fight was the Jacobs fight. And I laughed and laughed and laughed. Did you watch that fight?
No.
Because he quits on the stool. And they cut
that's with the old man?
They cut the senior, and the old man's got his hand in his face, or his face in his hands. The guy is a bit of a joke to boxing, is he not? Like, again, casual boxing observer here. But, yeah, like I saw that senior came out and basically said, like, I don't want either of my sons fighting anymore. So that's kind of sad when dad has to tell the kids to hang him up. But good for Anderson Silva. Hopefully that's it. But listen, he's a combat sports athlete in his mid-40s. Like, what is he, a year older than you? So he's probably going to fight again.
You know, Chael kept calling him 44. And a video I watched recently, he's older than me. He's 46, I think. All right, Craig, let's move on. Let's talk about, let's get to start the conversation. Shouts to Reddit. We haven't hollered at them in a while. Let's holler at them now. Francis Ngannou, we talked about this earlier. It's going to be an interim fight. It's going to be Lewis and Gane. Francis Ngannou's manager came out this week hurling some serious accusations at Dana White. I will give them to you. I have them here. This was the Instagram post from, was it Markel Martin?
Yeah.
Markel Martin is Francis Ngannou's representation. Dana White, LOL. Complete shock with your decision after we said September was good for us. Complete shock that you guys made threats after less than 3 months after you were aware. Complete shock after you knew why Francis needed more time. That is correct. I know you're passionate, but you trying to discredit my integrity when I've been nothing but respectful to you, Hunter, and your entire staff speaks more about you than it does me. I'm not even mad. I'm actually impressed that I've gotten your attention. Competent management, I think we've done a damn good job. I think you really don't like the fact that Francis is being represented by not only me, by an entire agency, one in which you can't control, hence why you have people trying to rep him all the time to your benefit. I tell you what, let's disclose everything for people to see. Emails, calls, texts, everything. Deal? Because I'm ready to get blackballed by UFC. I'm not defined by it, you or anyone else for that matter. How's that sound? Sincerely, your old employee, Markel Martin. So,
and the response from Dana White is this dude is so full of shit. He knows exactly, because again, it's in all caps, what's going on and isn't shocked at all. Shocked is in air quotes. Because we told him several times this was coming. His management is incompetent. Hopefully Francis starts taking a look at new people to help his career.
So with those two things in mind, here's where I want to start the conversation. Do you think that dealing with Dana White, that spilling the tea is the play? Is that the strategy to get to him? Or is this a recipe for disaster? And I ask you that because, and we don't get into this too often, but there's some tea to be spilt about Dana White. So even saying that means we'll probably never be on Fight Pass. But there's some things, there's some ring card girls this, and there's some this and that. And so
Allegedly,
folks. Allegedly. But there's some tea out there. So is this the way to get to Dana White, or is this just shaking the tiger cage?
I'm in the process of buying a house, actually. So my focus hasn't quite been there the last couple of weeks, and I'm really excited about it. And all that's to say that the house has a lot of bushes. John, I don't normally look through the weeds. I don't normally look through the bushes. I'm going to take an excavator. I'm going to dig them all up. All the weeds, I'm going to weed whack them. I don't normally look into this kind of stuff, but motherfucker was this big news yesterday. Like, I didn't check Twitter all day. I get to the end of my day. It's like 7 o'clock. We're sitting down. We're getting ready for Lake Canadien to play the Tampa Bay Lightning and eventually lose the first game. And I pull it up, and the first thing I see is that Ariel Helwani tweet thread. And I thought, what is going on here? So then, like you said, I read the Instagram post and all of that. All that to say, you bring up a really good point in your original question, which was, is airing of the dirty laundry a good idea when you're trying to deal with Dana White? Remember that time that Conor McGregor put all those DMs out there about him wanting to fight Diego Sanchez? That did not work. Now, he's getting a rematch against Poirier that's kind of undeserved. I mean, the guy's still ranked in the lightweight division, and his last win was in, November of 2016? Again, he's a special guy. But for anybody else, you can't do that type of stuff. I'm not surprised by, what would you say? The swift reaction of the UFC to go, you know what? You don't want to play hardball? We're just going to put an interim title together with your former teammate in the gym that you left because F you. I am surprised, again, from a purist perspective, that we're getting this, because the last time that Ngannou fought was when he beat Miocic, which was just over, 3 months ago, plus 3 days. I think it was the 27th of that month. So, again, do not air your dirty laundry with the UFC. Keep it behind closed doors. And I don't think this gives Francis Ngannou any more leverage. Although we're talking about it and everybody else is talking about it, and whatever it was, 79% of the respondents to my poll on Twitter, 72%, I've got it in front of me, don't want that interim title fight. If you want to try and play hardball, all they got to do is throw a little bit of a change up in the mix and you're striking out.
I'm going to say this, and again, this is all due respect to Dana White. But there's an old saying. It's, if you don't get into the slop and wrestle with pigs, because you both end up shitty and the pig likes it. I think that if you want to play hardball with Dana White wakes up in the morning to play hardball. So you better make sure your cup's on, and you got the Barry Bonds shit on your elbow, and you got the Terry Steinbach shit coming down, because Dana White, he throws chin music. He doesn't play around. He goes for your head. So if you're going to do this, you can do it, but understand that it's scorched earth from here on out. So it's up to you. All right, Craig, we're going to move on to Finish Strong. I'll let you do most of this, but at the beginning, I do want to do one thing, which is a collaboration that this person or this entity knows nothing about. I'm just making up a collaboration. MMA History Today. If you're not following them on Twitter, go follow them on Twitter. From now on Finish Strong, I am going to include things that happened in MMA history this week. I have 3. First, June 26, 2011, Czech Congo pulled off one of the greatest comebacks in history when he was on the verge of defeat and came back and beat Pat Barry. June 28, 2006, 15 years ago, Anderson Silva made his UFC debut, beat the sweet bullshit out of Chris Lieben, and then did the oddest celebration dance ever where he was playing a guitar. I think it was at Hard Rock. Maybe that's the connection. I don't know. And 24 years ago, on June 28th, 1997, Mike Tyson bit Evander Holyfield's ear off. Well, part of it off. And ignited, was the culmination of Tyson's insanity and set off, a feud that lasted for a really long time and may end up in a trilogy at some point in Triller. There's MMA history. Craig, Finish Strong is yours.
If you're playing at home, I was a month shy of 3 when that happened. So cool stuff. John, Finish Strong. A lot of news out there. Now, listen, for the people that play at home, we have quotes at the start of the show. If you didn't know that, there's a lot of people that watch the show and they're like, why did that nut job even say that? Well, if you made it this far into the show, there you go. That's what that is. John, the quote obviously was Sean O'Malley, obviously, right? And he was supposed to be fighting Louis Smolka next week. The fight's off. Smolka's out. Did you see how many bantamweights lined up to take the fight? Like, there's Cody Stamen. There was Merab Dvalishvili. Ray Borg said he could make the weight, and he would step in, even though he just fought with UAE Warriors and beat Canadian Jesse Arnett, a couple weeks ago? What are you thinking about this one? Are we going to have a big name, short notice opponent pop in here?
Oh, man. I don't know about a big name, but give me the list again.
Merab, Cody Stamen, Ray Borg. Tim Elliott said he can make the weight. That'd be a fun fight, right?
I think that we're going to know where the UFC's at with Sean O'Malley based on who they give the fight to. There isn't a chance in hell that Merab Dvalishvili is going to be the guy they give this fight to. Not a chance in hell. So that means that they want this kid standing up. Tim Elliott makes a lot of sense. Tim Elliott's a guy that would potentially stand with him and would go in there and get his ass whipped happily, with trade and whatever. So, Elliott makes sense. I don't know that we're going to get some superstar fight, but they need to put somebody in there that's going to be a willing participant and sort of have a gentleman's agreement that we're going to stand. Not that O'Malley can't go to the floor, but that's not why you watch a Sean O'Malley fight. Rally
around at Awkward MMA. John, fans of women's strawweight action back in 2015 would be clamoring for this fight. Jessica Penne versus Karolina Kowalkiewicz just got announced. Where are you at? Like on a scale of 1 to 10, how excited are you for this?
I'm actually kind of excited for it. I like both of those fighters. I think that they both have an opportunity to sort of redefine their situations. I like it. It's 8.
All right, that's fair. We talked about Khamzat Chimaev and how big of a rocket ship he had strapped to him last year, but kind of a similar fighter, and it's not, he's Georgian, a little bit different, but he was shot out of a cannon in his debuts, where I'm going with it, is Guram Kutateladze. He beat my guy, Mateusz Gamrot, looked great. He's supposed to fight Don Madge. He's out again. He's been booked and rebooked due to injury. Is this a huge blow to Guram?
It's a huge blow to all of us. I don't know how any of us are going to recover from this. It's
This isn't Bellator prelims material. Come on.
It's not. You're right. Yeah, it's a huge blow, and it takes him off whatever trajectory he was on.
Fair enough. Jan Blachowicz taking on Glover Teixeira. It was announced for October 30th. It's going to be in Abu Dhabi. Is the heat too hot for these two old timers?
I think so, man. I'm 44 and I live in Phoenix, and the heat's too hot for me occasionally. And I said a long time ago I would never say that. It's getting funky around here, man. It's getting hot.
Old people from Canada go there to live. How's it too hot for you?
I don't know.
We're going to have to make up a t-shirt now. I'm 44 and I'm from Phoenix.
There you go.
If you want it, you let us know. I'll make it. Last one for me. Artem Lobov came out and said he has a clause in his contract that if a fight with Zubaira Tukhugov comes to fruition, he'll take it regardless and break any fight that he's got going on in boxing. Is it ever going to happen that he fights Zubaira? And listen, let me just say one more thing. They were supposed to fight in the co-main event of that card right there. People can see it. The UFC Moncton card. I was supposed to see Artem Lobov, Zubaira Tukhugov. They were saying Connor was going to be in that fight. There was going to be added security. Khabib was going to be there. And then Artem Lobov fought Michael Johnson. But do you think he's ever going to fight Zubaira Tukhugov in MMA?
I think so. I mean, I think there's enough heat there that I think any fight that can be marketed beyond what it actually is and just its construction on paper, then yeah, I think that people are always going to find an excuse to make that fight happen. Probably bare knuckle.
You threw one down, but I'll read it out like it was my own and forget about that. We'll just cut it out. John, you're 44. You're from Phoenix, and you put Ariel Helwani. He leaves ESPN. The MMA Hour is back with MMA fighting. He's going to be a coworker of our former host. What the heck? Mike Heck. He's also joining The Ringer and a few other outlets. Your reaction?
I don't know what to think of this, man. I thought that when he went to ESPN, that was, him saying, I'm whoever, I'm Bob Costas, I'm Chris Berman of MMA, I'm all these things. And then to leave, I don't know, we talked about this off the air. I don't really know sometimes what Ariel Helwani's motivations are. Does he just want to do things to say that he did them and then still be on his own terms? Maybe he subscribes to the John Franklin theory from earlier of leave before you're asked to leave. And he was like, let me beat ESPN to the punch. I don't want to be part of the cuts. It seems like Brett Okamoto's not going anywhere. I felt like a lot of the things he did at ESPN were vanity projects. And that even though it was Errol and the bad guy, it was DC Helwani. Errol has this weird relationship with the space, which is he's immensely popular. Everybody associates him with MMA, but he doesn't really break down fights. He doesn't pick fights. He's just kind of like, man, how do I describe him without being insulting? He reminds me a little bit of Harvey Levin on TMZ. Like he just kind of tracks things and interviews people, and he's more about the tea and the movement and the news and breaking things. He's like the Adrian Wojnarowski. You don't really look to him for analysis, although they're putting him in more studio shows. You don't really look for Woj for analysis. I've never heard Woj break down a basketball game and really gave a shit about it. I've never heard Errol say anything. And this is really, guys, if you're fans of Errol, and obviously it sounds like I'm not, I have a lot of respect for what he's done, but I've never really heard him break down a fight, and I've never really turned to him for analysis of a fight. That's just not who he is. And I think that ESPN was like, well, if this is all you're going to do is do podcasts and sort of post-fight hosting, do we need that? Or can just somebody on SportsCenter do that?
I'm surprised that, they couldn't come to an agreement because, like you said, he's so popular. And I remember, the catalyst to even Fight Night Picks starting. So I hopped into the car, me and 5 others. We went down to Boston, UFC 220. Now, I told the story and I've told bits and pieces, but we went to the media day. And it was supposed to be who? Was it Frank Yeager, Max Holloway, and Khabib and Tony Ferguson? That was what they were promoting. So we went to that. They all, sit at the table, Dana White in the middle and all that. I'd never been to anything like that before in my life. That was the first time. So we were so excited. We got there like an hour early, waited to get in. And it was packed, but we sat like the first row behind all the media. And then obviously there's some friends and family. And for some reason, Stefan Struve was there, which was weird. But you look at it and I saw, any number of names. You think of the MMA personality, they were there. I don't know if James Lynch was there, but you think of everybody and they were there, and Ariel Helwani was there. And John, like I'm sitting at like TD Garden, so it's a hockey arena, and you know how the seats slope down so much at NHL arenas or NBA arenas or whatever. Ariel's about halfway there. That's where the media ends. He stands on the end of the stairwell, and people come down to see him. Must have been 200 people on there. And then there were more people. So what he did was he walked all the way across to the next stairwell, and then another 200 people came down, took pictures with him, met him, signed autographs, whatever. And he seemed like the most genuine, nice guy. Like, you could have been an absolute douche, and he probably would have had something nice to say. And I think that that really represented the sport well. So for ESPN and Ariel not to come to terms, it was kind of disappointing to me. And maybe I'm projecting a little bit, but I really do like Ariel Helwani in the space. I think what he does has tremendous amount of value, and obviously did because he got picked up by so many different outlets. So congrats to him, again, fellow Canadian. But it is a little weird because now the ESPN coverage, what are they really going to do? Honestly, I haven't really paid attention. I kind of broke the fourth wall trying to buy a house. I have different things that I have to focus on. And when it's a week without fights, I'm going to focus on that stuff first and foremost. But I'm eager to see what ESPN does after this because, yeah, they have Okamoto, but he doesn't do the same thing that Ariel did. And I don't see him hosting a show with DC or Chael Sonnen anytime soon. Mark Raymondi's there. They have great people, but nobody quite like Ariel. So it'll be interesting to see how ESPN's MMA coverage shifts as well.
Yeah, I think that their MMA coverage is just going to be full of UFC personalities, and like Megan O'Leary might be DC and O'Leary for all we know. But yeah. Listen, I have two Ariel Helwani stories, and they're of two different perspectives. Okay, one after the Brock Lesnar thing went down back in the day, I happened to be in Vegas. I happened to see Ariel walking out of I think it was New York, and I started walking with him. And I said, hey, I'm at this site. I think I was at like MMA Today now or Combat Press or something back in the day. And I told him that's the site I was with. And I was like, I'm small time, but I talked to you about something. And I go, I don't understand why. I don't get the whole busting up the UFC's surprise with the Lesnar coming back thing. Like, why do that? And I don't get it. I just don't understand why you would do that. And he said to me, he goes, Dana White's not my friend. I don't owe Dana White anything. And I can understand that, but I think that my thing that I can never understand with Ariel over time, and I was really at odds with him for a while over that, and then I kind of felt a little bit better about the situation because I saw him a couple years later at the UFC Hall of Fame induction, and I was like, okay. And this wasn't when it was like a big deal in an amphitheater. It was when they still did it in a small, and he kind of was in there, and I was like, oh, it's cool that Ariel showed up to this because he doesn't have to. And I never really pictured him as like a fan of the history or whatever, but he was there. Anyway, I sometimes feel like Ariel's loyalties are dependent upon what he wants and needs. And I think guys like him, James Lynch, guys that really do this thing for a living, like in a big major way, that's the game they have to play, right? They have to gig. They really are guys that are dependent upon this for their living. So if it solidifies you as who you are in the space by breaking the Brock Lesnar news, then yeah, everything else be damned. I think that Ariel wouldn't be who he is if not for Dana White and the fact Dana would do all those AOL interviews. But from Ariel's perspective, you could just say I'm part of the media and he's supposed to give them to me. So it all depends on how you look at it. I think that, Ariel typically comes back with some strong stuff. I think he was smart to get involved with the Ringer and Spotify. And I think that what he does with the Ringer is probably going to end up ultimately being a lot bigger than what he's going to do coming back to MMA fighting with the MMA Hour, because we've seen that before. So unless he completely revamps it, my guess is it's going to be what it was before in some form. But whatever, if him and Bill Simmons sit down and really come up with something, he could really have a large audience. My guess is before every big fight, he's going to be on the Simmons podcast. That, Simmons is the guy you want to be with if you're not with ESPN anymore. That's the reality. And
it gives him a huge avenue to kind of follow his, his pet projects and his passions with the NBA as well. So it's a good move for him. And again, for me, I wish him nothing but the best. And for MMA fighting, I think that's a huge shot in the arm. So kudos to the fine folks over there as well. And again, shouts to our former host. We got to get him on one of these shows one day.
Maybe he should get us on one of those shows. Okay, Craig can be followed at Craig Allen F&P. I can be followed at SM Cornerman. The fight has been stopped. We'll see you next week. Craig, say something witty.
Everywhere I go, the kids want to rock.
See you next week. Peace.